want to take a look at the concept of interdependence. And not surprisingly, I want to look at it from several levels of perspectives. You know, if interdependence is a universal truth, which we believe it is, then it will show up universally. Every place we look, we're going to see the truth of interdependence. And let's just see if that is true. William Wordsworth says, "As above, so below. What is true on one plane is true on all." So the first plane that I want to invite you to look at universal truth on is the individual plane, or within yourself. What is the truth of interdependence within your own being? Your entire life is based on the truth of interdependence. Every cell in your body is interdependent on every other cell. Each cell that functions impacts every other cell. Your blood cells work in an interconnected way with your liver cells. Your brain cells, they're functioning, it impacts the whole body. It impacts the cells in your big toe, and your little toe for that matter too. Everything is connected, and every system in your body works connected with every other system. Your nervous system works closely with your digestive system, and your reproductive system, and your circulatory system. Kind of basic anatomy, biology 101, right? But we know if one cell starts to behave erratically, it's going to have an impact in a wider circle of cells pretty quickly till it gets to the system level. And that erratic behavior is going to impact everything. And the health of one cell or system has a positive impact or a healing effect on the other systems of your body. So if we look at things from a little bit wider perspective, we can see the interconnectedness of the mind, body, spirit level of things, right? We know that if we're practicing self-care of the physical body, we tend to think more clearly. We tend to have more positive energy all around us. And if we fill our minds with positive thoughts, what happens? If we read, uplifting words, and be careful what we watch from the media, our bodies respond to that. Our spirit feels more content when we're taking care of our minds. And science has shown that people who meditate or stay in spiritual practice in some way not only reap the benefits spiritually, but mentally and physically, there is a positive impact. I teach this radical self-care workshop, and I told the board yesterday I will offer it at some point in our new space very soon, because I focus on this mind, body, spirit interdependence, and participants in this workshop are invited to kind of focus on one area of life and to begin to practice radical self-care in one area. And what happens is they report back that even though they're only doing this one thing, they're experiencing impact and positivity in other areas of their existence. So we know that when the physical body is injured or diseased, then we're at risk for experiencing depression that impacts us mentally. It's both impactful to the mind and the spirit in addition to the body. So interdependence shows up at that level. And when we back up another plane, let's look at the interdependence between individuals. Let's look at the family. Okay? So Becky and I are watching this Netflix series called Dogs. Has anybody watched this series, Dogs? It's awesome. Okay, so the first episode, I highly recommend it. The first episode is about service dogs. And it followed this family of a young girl with epilepsy who was experiencing seizures every day. Matter of fact, they were measuring her brain waves, and it showed seizure activity every minute of every day. And her name was Corinne Nowoleski. And Corinne would often lose consciousness during this seizure activity, and sometimes she would stop breathing. Now her parents, their names were Beth and Mike. I think it's helpful to know the details. Beth and Mike were frantic with this child. I'm thinking about 10 or 11 years old. And they were so worried about her that the mother moved out of her bedroom and began sleeping on Corinne's floor at night just to watch over her all night long and make sure she was breathing, even though she was having seizures. And her parents managed pages and pages of medications to help Corinne with her condition. And she could never be alone. She could never be alone. So a family member or a special school employee was with Corinne all day long. Now, she had a little sister. Her name was Carly. And Carly was often assigned to basically shadow Corinne when they were outside playing. So if they played hide and seek, someone had to hide with Corinne. She couldn't go off somewhere and hide, because if she had a seizure and stopped breathing, there would be no one to notice. Or if she was it, then someone had to be it with her. She couldn't be the one running around by herself. So as you can imagine, this younger sister had as much depression about her sister's condition as she did. They both experienced it. And as you can imagine, the parents' marriage was very stressed in this whole situation as well. And when I was watching this show, I was incredibly aware of the interdependence of this family. The challenge and stress that one family member was having was being felt by every single member of the family. Logistically, emotionally, mentally, this family was tapped. And the good news is that she was approved to receive this service dog, much like Norman that you met the other Sunday when he came from Valor Service Dogs. Much like him, she was given a service dog named Rory. And Rory, the introduction of Rory into this pattern had a positive impact on the entire family, because Rory could be with her at night and could watch for her seizure activity and bark and get help when it was needed. Just like there was a positive uptick in everyone's life with the introduction of this dog. And so as goes one person in the family, so does the entire family go. And Corinne's story is not unique. You know, I'm sure if you can think of your family, you will be hard-pressed to identify something going on with one family member that's not spilling out and impacting everybody else. You know, matter of fact, I can't even think of one that if in my family growing up, if one of us was experiencing something, the whole family went through it together. If you introduce a stressor into the family, the whole family's going to feel it. But if you introduce a success or a victory into that family, a healing transformation of one individual, it has a ripple effect to the other members as well. So just as we did on the individual level, we can intentionally infuse a family with a healing, or a dysfunction for that matter, by impacting only one of the members. And if one member starts themselves on a healing path, everyone else in the situation has that ripple positive effect. Think about if a family member entered recovery or started getting treatment for a mental health issue. The whole family is going to have an uptick in their experience. So we see interdependence is the truth of families. But let's take it even wider still. We started at the individual, we're widening out. So let's go to the community. What about neighborhoods or communities? Is it true on that level? Now we can pretend that what happens in our house does not impact anyone else around us, but we would be pretending, right? In actuality, think about this. The health of our household rip out into the community. You can probably think about it right now, and you can identify the house in your neighborhood that is filled with negative energy, that is somehow imperceptibly oozing out into the streets. You can feel it, but you can also drive down that same street and you can feel or sense the house that just seems to be smiling at you, right? It's like, oh, there's so much joy spilling out of that house. You can feel it. You can feel it. We can subtly kind of pick up on the ways that human beings around us either add or subtract to our life experience. The laws passed at the community level have an impact on all of us, right? Even the traffic patterns or the way that we move about and drive our cars and interact with other people adds or subtracts to the quality of our life. How we treat someone in one conversation does not just impact that one conversation. Both parties leave that conversation and carry that energy into the next conversation and the next and the next. And that one, let's say, challenging conversation can have a ripple effect over and over, widening out into the community. Just one conversation that's difficult, or positive for that matter. If you have a joyful conversation, if you compliment someone, they carry that with them from that moment into the next one, into the next interaction. Think of the positive impact a new playground would have on a neighborhood, right? Or think of the impact a house fire in one house would impact the entire neighborhood. Interdependence is the truth in the wider community as well. And that truth of interdependence goes even wider and wider. On a national level, we are seeing the interdependent experience of the media on our collective consciousness. Internationally, we see that same experience through social media and the internet. You know, the conversation that's happening is going wider and wider. You know, if we stop and think about it, we can name individual after individual that is using the truth of interdependence to have a widespread influence around the world. Think about it. Artists, musicians, politicians, spiritual leaders, social media personalities, internet personalities, they know that if they can have an impact on one person or influence one group of people, there is no limit to the reach that they can have internationally due to the truth of interdependence. It's just the reality of the interconnectedness of the world that we live in right now. Oneness is more evident to me now than it was the first time I heard about the concept, 20-something years ago. I couldn't quite grasp it, but I get it more and more now. So what does this mean to all of us? If we're going to be spiritually active, which is what this whole year of lessons is about, is being spiritually active, we must take the concept of interdependence very seriously, don't we? So in Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, the founder of our philosophy, said this: "We firmly believe that immediate salvation is within reach of all, and that we continue to suffer so long as we impose suffering." So a few weeks ago, I pointed out that through the law of cause and effect, we can make a difference, because certain causes have the effect of happiness and joy, and other causes have the effect of suffering. So what are you causing? If we want to stop suffering, we have to stop choosing causes that create suffering. The world depends on us choosing happiness causes, right? And we have to start with that very first level of awareness we focused on at the beginning of this talk. We have to start with ourselves. We have to start with our own thinking and begin considering and believing in our own divinity. And we need to do that immediately. Ernest Holmes considers this very important and always seems to relate it back to our thinking. He says, "The universe holds nothing against us. We are judged by our own acts, and since we cannot act without first thinking, we are really judged by our own thoughts. Punishment and reward are automatic. Happiness and joy are automatic depending on your thinking. Suffering is automatic depending on your thinking." But once we get our thinking straightened out, it's time for us to do something in the world. It's time for us to do something. Ernest Holmes is unequivocal about the need to take action. For example, in this quote, he says, "Proper understanding of his relationship to the universe, supported by intelligent, industrious work, will add materially to his measure of success." With work without vision is drudgery, but vision without work is self-deception. The well-balanced man can walk with his head in the clouds and still keep his feet solidly planted on the ground. Faith and work are ineffective when separated. So if you have all the faith in the world, you get this, you understand the power of your thinking, and you don't do anything with it, Ernest Holmes is not going to be happy with you. What he is saying is that once we get a proper understanding of who we are as spiritual beings, we can intelligently and intentionally get industrious about acting as if we know who we are and what we are capable of, the power that we have. We can live with the perspective that we are a unique expression of God and do wonderful things to have a positive impact on the world around us. You know, I often talk about the fact that we have 2 feet. If you've been around for 10 seconds, you know I talk about 2 feet. We have a spiritual foot and we have a human foot. And when we stay balanced with both of our feet firmly planted in groundedness, nothing can stop us or limit the powerful impact that we can have. See, what I fully understand is that I have the power of the universe, my spiritual foot. When I keep that grounded, I have the power of the universe informing me and inspiring me. But then I got my human foot down, and that means I can do something. I can actually do something on this human level. I fear nothing, and I can make the world different by my own action. Isn't that a paradox, you know, that the world around me is showing me chaos and trouble. My human eyes see all that. I'm supposed to remain centered on the fact that I'm God itself in form. That seems like a far stretch. That's a paradox. But Holmes says this: people, things, institutions, methods, sciences, philosophies, they're all good. From each I shall learn everything that I can, and with deep gratitude acknowledge the good I am receiving from whatever source. But I am still whole within myself, dependent upon nothing, and yet always interdependent with all things. That's the only time Ernest Holmes used the word interdependent. But we're interdependent with everything, but nonetheless, I know who I am. So our invitation is to take everything we learn and assimilate it in our consciousness. Let it all be there, and live and make choices that have powerfully positive impact on every level of our lives. So let's go back through those levels. On the individual level, our work is to heal our thoughts and spend more and more moments in the knowing of the truth. In our personal lives, the everyday challenge is to wake up and practice the presence of God. On this level, our biggest task is self-love and compassion and forgiveness. The actions we take here on that level choose causes that lead us to the effect of our own happiness. That's our job on that level. See, if you're not happy, do something about it. Your job is to be happy. On the interpersonal level, our work is to create good in our relationships, in our families, and in our friendships. Our work is to practice radical forgiveness and intentionally infuse every interaction with love, the love that you are. If people are not uplifted in your presence, go back to the individual level and keep working there. You should be an uplifting, an inspiring person to everyone you interact. And on the community level, our spiritual activism is about making sure that our home is the one that radiates joy and positivity. It is on this level that we practice generosity and kindness and compassion. We're invited to continuously remember the interdependence of all beings and work to improve the conditions of everyone around us. That is our calling as spiritual activists. And on the national level, our spiritual work is to understand the issues at hand and contribute to the debate, a viewpoint of love and inclusion, peace, and order. And sometimes our work is to simply not add any more pain to this equation. We vote, we stand for equality of all human beings, and we understand in the truth of interdependence that we are all equal and our words and our actions have impact. And as a global citizen, our work is to love all sentient beings, including Mother Earth, especially Mother Earth, and to do our part in respecting all creatures great and small. The spiritual truth is that there is a pattern of perfection in all creation, and we must see that wholeness regardless of the appearance of anything less than that. You know, since I've lived in Georgia for so many years, John Lewis is one of my heroes, and I want to share something he wrote on the subject of interdependence, and I paraphrase just a little bit because he's rather wordy. He said this: "We believe some people are more special, more beautiful, more capable, more influential, more intelligent, more gifted, and have a greater capacity for good than others, often based on material possessions and outer appearances. At the root, that is why we are engaged in a struggle now. There are people in power who truly believe their role is to defend the privileges of the elite. They defend certain tax breaks and cry for other funding cuts because, in essence, they believe one group is more important than another, more deserving than the other, and one contributes more good than the other. And this is actually an illusion that is blind to the interdependence of the entire creation, which unites the weak with the strong, the privileged with the poor, and the ugly with the beautiful. All the inequities of our world are basically attempts to actualize this erroneous belief that some are more. And that is why there is turmoil, because we are in conflict with the truth of interdependence. We are working to manifest an idea that is false." John Lewis, in his book, Across the Bridge, A Vision for Change and the Future of America. It is up to us to wake up and be conscious in our beliefs, in our thoughts, in our actions, in our words, so we can be responsible to ourselves and to the world. Remember, we're all interconnected. So we demonstrate our dominion. We demonstrate our power in compassion and understanding. If we aren't, our unconscious beliefs and thought and words and actions, including our susceptibility to race consciousness, will rule our lives. If we don't, we get lived instead of living. In 1992, a Declaration of Interdependence was written for the UN Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. And I want to share it with you because it speaks to interdependence beautifully. And it said, "This we know. We are the earth. Through the plants and animals that nourish us, we are the rains and the oceans that flow through our veins. We are the breath of the forests of the land and the plants of the sea. We are human animals related to all other life as descendants of the firstborn cell. We share with these kin a common history written in our genes. We share a common present filled with uncertainty, and we share a common future as yet untold. We humans are but one of 30 million species weaving the thin layer of life enveloping the world. The stability of communities of living things depends upon this diversity. Linked in that web, we are interconnected, using, cleansing, sharing, and replenishing the fundamental elements of life. Our home, planet Earth, is finite. All life shares its resources and the energy from the sun, and therefore has limits to growth. For the first time, we have touched those limits. When we compromise the air, the water, the soil, and the variety of life, we steal from the endless future to serve the fleeting present. This we believe. Humans have become so numerous and our tools so powerful that we have driven fellow creatures to extinction, dammed the great rivers, torn down ancient forests, poisoned the earth, rain, and wind, and ripped holes in the sky. Our science has brought pain as well as joy. Our comfort is paid for by the suffering of millions. We are learning from our mistakes. We are mourning our vanished kin, and we now build a new politics of hope. We respect and uphold the absolute need for clean air, water, and soil. We see that economic activities that benefit the few while shrinking the inheritance of many are wrong. And since environmental degradation erodes biological capital forever, full ecological and social costs must enter all equations of development. We are one brief generation in the long march of time. The future is not ours to erase. So where knowledge is limited, we will remember all those who will walk after us and err on the side of caution. And this we resolve. As this All this that we know and believe must now become the foundation of the way we live. At this turning point in our relationship with Earth, we work for an evolution, from dominance to partnership, from fragmentation to connection, from insecurity to interdependence. And as we have explored today, we are all connected. If one of us remains unconscious and unhappy and unfulfilled, that ripples out to impact everyone else and the earth. It is our imperative to declare the truth of interdependence and to heal ourselves for the good of the all. We are all one. And so it is.